Two big-time flips for the Mizzou football team in what is probably going to be the wildest 2 weeks on the college football calendar from here on out. Let's talk about it and more right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. And just in case you thought with the college football regular season concluding that it was going to be boring around here, oh, nay. Nay, indeed. Au contraire, folks. Portal season is about to get wild. High school recruiting, a big-time signing day on Wednesday. Also got a Caleb Grill health update coming for you later in the show. But let's start off with the big recruiting news off the field here from Missouri. 2 4-star players in as many days have flipped toward the Missouri Tigers. First of all, Marquise Davis, who is, according to On3, the 7th best running back in the entire country from the state of Ohio. Cleveland Heights High School, to be exact, had offers from Michigan, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Missouri flipped him from Kentucky. So obviously a win-win there over a potential SEC rival as well. What stood out to me just initially looking at Marquise Davis at 5'11", 200 pounds. He is the absolute prototypically sized Eli Drinkwitz running back for sure. And with Missouri had previously, maybe they're still in on Brendan Haygood, a former Boise State commitment until recently when he opened up things. He's been visiting Missouri. How does this affect his potential recruitment, and how do both of these guys, both of these running backs, how do they affect Damarion Morrow, who's a guy who's been committed to Missouri for a long time? Is he going to stick with Missouri, or is he going to potentially go to Texas A&M or Georgia, where he's been taking official visits as of late? Now, the second 4-star player that Missouri flipped was a wide receiver, top 25 nationally at the position, according to On3. 4-star Damarion Folks. He's about 5'10", 175 pounds, probably more of a slot speedster type of player, if you will. Doesn't look to be an outside receiver at that size. So Folks, another real interesting prospect here at the high school ranks. And speaking of 4 stars, in-state guy Jack Lang, offensive lineman, tweeted out that Missouri is, quote, not done yet either. So some more flips maybe coming Missouri's way, though. Speaking of the offensive line, not all good news. Lamont Rogers, a longtime Missouri commit from the state of Texas, well, it's looking inevitable at this point that he's going to flip to Texas A&M. That's been the signs for quite a while now, including Gabe DeArmond basically putting that out this morning, that it's seeming more and more inevitable, even more so than it did in the coming weeks here. Regardless, all of this high school action, we're going to have an official signing day here on Wednesday, so just lots of action happening here on the Missouri beat. Tigers are going to be taking on Cal tomorrow in basketball. They're going to be taking on Kansas at home on Sunday. And yes, a week from today, maybe even the biggest news of all, the transfer portal is officially going to be open, though announcements on social media, graphics, all that kind of stuff already being put out, including by USC Southern Cal quarterback Miller Moss just made his announcement. So a huge name there at the quarterback position. And it's quite obvious that Missouri is going to be looking for a starter at the quarterback position. Doesn't take a genius to figure that one out, just looking at the roster for sure. But what else? Well, I think there's been a lot of speculation that safety is a spot that Missouri will look. But I don't know that there are any necessarily glaringly obvious needs on this roster. I think a number 1 or 2 receiver could be there, a corner, offensive lineman, defensive lineman always are going to be a priority almost no matter who you are. You want as much depth at those positions as possible. But as I've said all along here, I do think for the last couple weeks or so at least, I do think that Missouri is okay at running back. I really think that while Missouri went into the portal this past season to get a couple backs, obviously, well, not exactly the portal, but when Cody Schrader, he came in as a transfer too. I would like to see Missouri roll with Keywan Lacey, Jamal Roberts, and maybe Tavoris Jones as well, whoever else that they like on the roster, maybe even one of those true freshmen that I just mentioned who could potentially be on the roster. But to me, I think Lacey showed enough explosiveness. I think the staff obviously showed that they believe in him this past fall too. I think him, and along with Roberts, who is a very well-rounded player, I think, a solid runner, solid receiver, solid blocker, as we, by the way, saw on that quarterback draw that won the game for Missouri ultimately against Arkansas. Roberts had a really key block on the middle linebacker that just basically opened up everything for Missouri there. So to me, stick with the running back position if you're Missouri, but probably tight end is okay as well. But I think receiver is a definite possibility. You're always looking for linemen, and quarterback is the most obvious position of all. And there's still been a lot of talk and disagreement among Missouri fans about, hey, if Missouri had pulled out that game in Columbia, South Carolina against the Gamecocks, would Missouri be solidly in the playoff hunt? Would they be inside the 12-team field? Well, I could totally be wrong, but I think Missouri currently, I think as things stand right now, had Missouri won that game and obviously still had beaten Arkansas, I think the Tigers would be 11th. I think they'd be in Alabama's spot. You see, currently you've got 3-loss Alabama 11th, 3-loss South Carolina 12th in the college football rankings. I think based on what the committee has shown, despite that head-to-head obvious beatdown by Alabama, I do think you have to factor in the backup quarterback into the equation there a little bit to me. And by the way, hey, hi, Florida State. I know that you've seen that movie before, so there is precedent, in other words, is what I'm saying. I could absolutely be wrong here. Maybe Missouri wouldn't have gotten the benefit of the doubt over the Crimson Tide. There certainly would be an argument, wouldn't there? And really the committee has mostly shown that they tend to value your actual record over strength of schedule. So I think there's a really good chance the Tigers would have been right there. And just for some more context on this 2024 season, since 1960, this is just the 7th time that Missouri has gone undefeated at home. And by the way, the first time the Tigers with 7 home victories in one season. And if the schedule remains, they'll have a shot at 8 next season as Missouri plays 8 home games, just the 4 road games in the SEC next year for Missouri. That includes a home tilt with Kansas, by the way, in week 2 at Faurot Field. Also, just the 3rd time in really the modern era of college football, I'll just say post-World War II, just the 3rd time that Missouri has had a 10-game home winning streak. Other times spanned from 2006 to 2008, 2009 to 2011. Well, obviously, this one dates back to just after the Missouri loss to LSU and is indeed ongoing. So let's keep that streak going, hopefully through all of the non-conference schedule next season and beyond. And another great comeback victory for the Tigers against Arkansas, but yet another slow start, especially offensively. Why do the Tigers start slowly this season? Well, I have a bit of a theory coming up in just a little bit, and also an update on Caleb Grill's status here in just a little bit. But first, you know what? Let's talk game time, because you got to get ready to tackle the NFL with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So Missouri with a big-time non-conference game, at least a game that Missouri really needs to win. A solid California team, if not a great California team. But certainly the Golden Bears are expected to be a lot better than Lindenwood, for example. So a decent test for Missouri, but one it definitely needs to pass, I think, if they're realistically going to make the NCAA tournament, for example, or just come close to hitting whatever the best version of this Missouri team is this season. But if the Tigers are going to win, they're going to have to do it without Caleb Grill against Cal. Dennis Gates says the Grill is day-to-day. Quote, he's in great spirits, but he will not play. Added that Grill spent his time in the hospital watching the game on his phone for the most part. Called Coach Gates, said he was good to go and jogging in place, by the way, that night at 2 a.m. So it doesn't sound like Caleb Grill is too bad off for the long term. Just maybe needs, who knows, a few days, a week, 2 weeks. Who the heck knows? He's day-to-day, so I'll take that literally at this point because it does just seem like maybe some residual effects from that, but long-term, I'm not getting any indication that Grill is going to be out for weeks or months or anything like that. So overall, especially after what was a really scary situation at Mizzou Arena, this has got to be considered good news for the Tigers and for Caleb Grill. But you know what, transitioning back to football a little bit, I've been thinking a lot about the Missouri offense in particular and why we've been slow to start this season. Why I don't think you can necessarily nail it down to one factor, but I do have a bit of a theory here. I think that Missouri has gotten early in ball games too overly reliant on what the football nerds would call constraint plays. Now, for example, we've heard for years and years, if you're old school football coaches in particular, talk about establishing the run. Well, essentially what you're talking about there is that's almost a constraint play. You're establishing something that you want the defense to defend. Really, you can establish the deep ball or the play action game or a million other things as well. But what I think Missouri tries to establish early in the game is throws into the flat, whether it's swing screens or it's the various different ways that Missouri tries to get Luther Burden in particular the ball near the line of scrimmage out in the flat part of the field. Well, I just think that's gotten a little bit predictable over the last couple seasons. I think those plays were more effective last season, even with similar personnel, because, again, simply put, I think it's just gotten a little bit predictable that especially early in the game, Missouri's really going to try to establish the flat part of the passing game. The jet sweep is a part of that as well, but to me, if I have a slight theory here, again, I haven't pinned it down to just one thing by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think Missouri and Kirby Moore has got to maybe change up that aspect of the offense a little bit next season, especially with different personnel. Obviously, no Luther Burden, no Brady Cook. It'd be interesting to see what exactly that offense looks like structurally next season. And Brady Cook made some comments after the game that took some Missouri fans a little bit aback, I think, had them wondering, is that a shot at Barry Odom, for example? Well, Cook said, and I'll just give you the whole quote here, quote, 5 years ago, Coach Drink came in, toxic culture, toxic team, not a lot of wins, and I was right there with him. And to see the culture he's built, the team he's built to play under him, to be his starting quarterback for 3 years, and just to see how we've both grown and overcome so much, it's been really cool. So you look at that whole quote there, and I think it's pretty obvious that Cook is just trying to build up his coach. And obviously when a coach is fired in year 4, things aren't always going the greatest. It's not, every locker room culture is better when things are winning versus losing, for example. So I wouldn't take that as a shot at Barry Odom whatsoever, who, by the way, Brady Cook originally committed to Barry Odom, and obviously Drinkwitz, he ended up keeping his commitment to Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz when he came in. But I just don't see that as a shot at Odom at all. And by the way, Barry Odom playing Boise State for a conference title this week. They're very much in the fight for that 12 seed. And since I brought up Brady Cook, I might as well bring up the other controversy, well, at least my controversial remarks. Eli Drinkwitz was asked in retrospect, Cook was asked, excuse me. So Brady Cook was asked after the game, hey, did you ever think about maybe taking a knee there? And I have to admit, didn't think of it in the moment. Never, again, to be very clear, I'm not criticizing Cook whatsoever. But when that question is asked, I then the wheels have to start turning in my brain. And the God's honest is you break it down. Missouri could have easily, in theory, they could have kneeled it out on the 2-yard line or whatever. And with no time left on the clock, essentially, kick a 19-yard field goal, win the game, and go off into the sunset, never giving Arkansas another possession and a chance to win. So I had a lot of people disagree with my assessment there. My assessment is that, yes, while we all would have been really nervous on that field goal in the snow, the way I look at it, percentage-wise, again, disagree with me if you want, there's a lot better chance of Blake Craig making a 19-yard field goal than there is, for example, Missouri. There's a bigger risk of Missouri not getting a stop against Arkansas. That's my point. By the way, the Hogs could have gone down, scored a touchdown, gone for 2, and won the game. The whole point here is that you can take all of that risk out at that point. I think percentage-wise, I just don't think there's really an argument against that. I think most people's arguments are emotional there. They're thinking about how they wouldn't want to lose the game. Like they'd feel so terrible if Blake Craig missed that field goal. And definitely that would feel terrible. We know exactly what that feels like. Harrison Mevis did it against Auburn in 2022. So I understand the reaction there. I really do. If you want to still disagree with me on that, that's fine. Again, the point here is not to say Brady Cook did anything wrong. I don't think he did anything wrong whatsoever. But again, if you're going to ask me that question, the wheels are going to start turning. I'm going to start doing some calculations. And it seems pretty clear to me that a field goal that's going to go in conservatively 98% of the time, well, is there going to be more than a 2% chance that Arkansas scores a touchdown there? Yeah, I'd say they would, despite the fact the Razorbacks didn't quite cross midfield on their final drive there. I just think that percentage-wise, I still think it's on the side of the kneel there. Now, if Missouri actually needed a touchdown, as it did the previous week against South Carolina when the Tigers, well, some people are asking, hey, should Luther Burden have taken a knee after the one-handed catch? Number one, kind of impossible to do that under those circumstances. But even if he would have had time to do that and think of it, you can't guarantee a touchdown. At least you can't guarantee anything in life. You can't guarantee a 19-yard field goal either. But again, let's talk percentages here. What's more likely to happen? You make a 19-yard field goal or you score a touchdown even with 1st and goal from the 1? I think it's obviously the field goal. If you think I'm wrong, I'd love you to show your work and show me the math there. And coming up, I'll take some of your questions and comments, including a lot of love for Johnny Walker and the Missouri 2-point play that Luther Burden scored on against Arkansas for the Tigers' final points. Let's talk about that here in just a second. But first, I want to talk about Gametime, because this time of year, there's so many events going on. Not only football, basketball season is in full swing. You got concerts, theater, comedy, all kinds of stuff. Well, Game Time's the place to get your tickets to all of these events, especially with Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on the best seats. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And with I had a lot of words, nice words for, of course, Luther Burden and Brady Cook. Well, probably didn't give enough time to all of the Missouri seniors, quite honestly. And one YouTube commenter said, Johnny Walker is one of the most underrated Tigers of my lifetime. Dude is a great player. He's either going to fly up draft boards or be a steal in the draft. Explosive and relentless. I think we have a few guys who are going to be steals this year in Walker, Theo Weiss, and Drayden Norwood. So, well, my thoughts there are, number one, I'd love to see Johnny Walker obviously have a great NFL career. I think I really, in particular, agree with you on Theo Weiss, though. I think really Luther Burden's presence, maybe if anything, has caused Weiss to fly a little bit under the radar, at least with pundits and fans, that type of deal. But I got to imagine all the NFL scouts who have been watching Luther Burden closely have got to be noticing Theo Weiss popping off the tape as well. It's 2 years of him just doing a good job of not only getting open pretty regularly, but making contested catches as well. So to me, yeah, Theo Weiss could be a potential real sleeper in the NFL. I totally agree with that. As for Drayden Norwood, like Drayden a lot. I really do. The one thing I would say with him, constructive criticism-wise, I think this is true for him and maybe all of the Missouri defensive backs. I think too often we get caught peering into the backfield. Your number one job as a D-back, hey, keep that ball in front of you. Prevent the deep pass. Too often, I think, at least under Batoon this season, playing a little more zone defense, I thought there were just times when Missouri got caught peeking at the quarterback instead of, well, playing the actual receiver, playing their zone, playing their assignment. Another commenter here from Everydayer John. He says that 2-point play was maybe the best 2-point conversion play I've ever seen. Well, obviously the Brady Cook to Luther Burden pass initially started off as a direct snap. That was basically the Philly special. You remember from about, 6-7 years ago now, where Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles pulled out a victory over the New England Patriots. Well, that famous double pass Philly special play that has been run a lot by teams over the years, usually not nearly as successfully. So I have to admit I didn't see the Philly special coming there. Missouri did a nice job of hiding Luther Burden there, getting the action going away from him initially. That sort of confused, speaking of defenders getting caught looking in the backfield, well, they were maybe looking at the ball too much and then forgetting about number 3, who Arkansas, for the lion's share of that game, and did a great job of obviously taking him out of it for the most part. So thanks again for the comments and questions. As always, hit me with an email, lockedonmizzou@gmail.com or at lockedonmizzou, anywhere on social media. So thanks as always for joining me. I'm John Miller, and this has been Locked on Mizzou.